One study even found that lower rates of hospital admissions and risks of death from diverticular disease among vegetarians is lower. So, how does a plant-based diet protect our brain? Chronic inflammation and oxidative stress lead to the development of Alzheimer's disease. You will remember from a previous webinar that chronic inflammation is the root cause of diseases like diabetes, cancer, and cardiovascular disease, and that chronic inflammation is not the same inflammation that you would receive from a contusion or a bruise. You might remember, we might have even talked about this in the last session about chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation causes damage to tissues of vital organs, making them more susceptible to disease. So we do not want chronic inflammation inside the body at all. And these nutrients, these antioxidants, these phytochemicals, and these phytonutrients are all trying to protect you against the harmful effects of chronic inflammation. So what are some of the challenges and myths that surround plant-based eating? Because I'm sure that you've heard some of these as well. So let's talk about some of those. There are misconceptions such as getting adequate protein and calcium. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. More food preparation is required. There may be unfamiliarity with new foods like tofu and foods made from pea protein. So let's address a few of these. Plant proteins like legumes, nuts, and seeds have excellent what's called protein packages, and that's not something that Valerie made up. That's protein packages is actually a term used when you're evaluating the quality of a protein. You will recall from your science lessons that there are 9 essential amino acids, which you must get through your diet. You might have heard of these or remember these, like histidine, isoleucine, leucine, lysine, methionine, phenylalanine, threonine, tryptophan, and valine. They're vital for functions such as protein synthesis, tissue repair, and nutrient absorption. Research on plant protein has removed the long-term myth that plant-based proteins were incomplete or missing amino acids, and that you had to eat plant proteins and grains at the same time to reach your balance of amino acids. And I can remember as a dietitian when I first started out that for people who were following vegan or vegetarian type diets, it wasn't really, plant forward was not really a term back then, or flexitarian or pescatarian, you didn't hear that very much. But there were practicing vegetarians and vegans, and what our advice to them was that to eat a plant protein like legumes, beans, and peas, those types of things, but have a complementary grain associated with it, like rice, brown rice, for example, because at that time the science or the research was that you needed those complementary foods in order to complete the protein. Otherwise, you might not get all the essential amino acids. And that has now been debunked, so we don't need to do that. So we now know there is little danger of protein deficiency in a plant food-based diet. All right, so in today's cooking demonstration, we will be using a white bean called a cannelli bean or cannellini bean, sometimes it's called. It's also known as fagioli or F-A-G-I-O-L-I or haricots blanc, like a white bean, which is exactly what it is. It's a white bean. So basically they are white kidney beans, very popular in Italian, Greek, and French cuisines. They're very hearty and they hold up in cooking. These beans have a creamy texture, they're mellow, they're nutty, they really blend very well with all kinds of flavors, especially tomatoes, garlic, onions, dark green leafy vegetables. Like most beans and peas, they are an excellent source of fiber, folate, iron, and magnesium, and only a quarter cup of this will give you 11 grams of protein, so they are packed with protein. Right, so what about calcium? That's another concern with a vegan or vegetarian diet. To ensure you get enough calcium in your diet, the goal is about 1,200 milligrams a day for an adult. Tofu and orange juice come to mind, and they're excellent sources, as well as dark green leafy vegetables are another great source of protein. The orange juice has had calcium added back to it, and you can see, or added to it, and you can see this when you read the label from the orange juices. Now they've added calcium to that. People like orange juice. Calcium works well in an orange juice mixture. So that's an excellent way to drink your calcium if you don't want to consume a dairy product like milk. You could also consider taking a calcium supplement to ensure calcium needs are met daily, and that's quite common for people to be able to do that. If you're not a dairy foods type person, it may be difficult to meet your vitamin D requirements as well. Here in the South, we've got plenty of sunshine, so about 10 minutes a day of that will get your vitamin D source. Other alternatives are consuming vitamin D fortified foods such as soy milk, orange juice, or you can consider vitamin D as a supplement. You just put my earring back in. Sorry about that. So let's get started with our powered plant eating and prepare our dishes. And as Carissa already mentioned, we're going to prepare a mousse that has mandarin oranges in it, which is really good, and it's a great fall color as well. And we're also going to prepare we're going to prepare what I call a stuffed hoagie. This is a really versatile recipe as well, and we'll talk about that. So while I'm getting that set up, I know there are probably a couple of quiz questions in there that I've already gone over.
There sure are. I can go ahead and put one of those out. So if you all have not joined us before, we do offer a quiz question section, and whoever answers the quiz question correctly the first will receive a prize. So if you could send your answers to me as the moderator, Carissa, that would be great. And the first one is posted now. So name foods with powerful antioxidants.
I hear those brains thinking out there.
Okay, have a winner. All right, Sharon, if you would send your address to me directly as the moderator, that would be great, wherever you would like your prize shipped to.
Yep. Congratulations. Good job.
There we go. And we'll knock out a few more in just a little.
Okay, so here we go. We're going to start off with this stuffed hoagie. So this is a sandwich dish, but it can actually be used in a lot of different ways, not only as a stuffing for a sandwich, but I'm going to show you some alternative ways to use this dish as well. So when you're making this one dish, there's a way to use it in a variety of ways, and it freezes well. So that's also a plus for this. Okay, if you've already been cooking along with me, or I don't know if you had the recipe ahead of time, I don't think you did this time, but in this particular recipe, I did use some chicken-based sweet sausage here. This is a low-fat chicken sausage, and as I mentioned, I didn't want to completely eliminate meat products from this because there are people who like meat products, and that's just fine. But we need to be cognizant of the amount of fat and how we can control the calorie content, the sodium content, and all that. So I just used a low-fat chicken sausage in here. You could use a turkey sausage if you wanted to, or there are plenty of plant-based sausages out there that would work really well in this recipe. So I've just cooked the sausage along with the garlic, and just a little bit of dried oregano in here as well. I added red pepper flakes to give it a little bit of hot profile to it, but you could also use like a Tabasco sauce or a hot sauce like that if you didn't want to use the red pepper flakes. I would not add any salt to this recipe at all. It is already salty enough. We've got tomatoes in here that naturally have a little bit higher sodium content in them. The sausage, if you're buying it, will probably have salt in it. That's just how they make them. They're going to use it as a preservative, so you're probably not going to find a very low sodium sausage in here because they need it when they're preparing it. So what I did was I just cooked that ahead of time, and then you just simply add all the ingredients to it. I did make one addition to this. So let me go ahead and I'll just add the crushed tomatoes right to it. So in the same pan that you cooked the sausage, just go ahead and add everything else right to it. So we're going to add beans as well. These are cannellini beans. Really, really a nice bean. And they do hold up really well in this recipe. This is 2 15-ounce cans of this, which is a lot of beans. So there's a lot of product here. So just be aware of that making it. You're going to need to think about other ways to use this, because unless you're feeding about 6 people, you're going to have a lot of product here. Okay. When I was making this recipe yesterday, it wasn't quite sweet enough to me. Tomatoes are very acidic, and I tasted more of the tomatoes in the acid. So I thought, you know what, I need to add a little bit of sugar to this, but I didn't want to add just cane sugar. What you can do is add something like carrots. So this is just fresh carrot, and I added that directly, and I just diced it. This is 1 carrot. I just diced it and added that directly to the recipe, so it can cook in. And then I added about 2 fistfuls of spinach in here. Okay, you don't need to do anything with it. This is fresh spinach. I just add it directly in there. You could also use another type of green if you wanted to. So collard greens would work well in here. Kale would work in here. Experiment with it and see what you like. All right, you're really just going to mix that all together. I added I think it's about a cup of water to the recipe as well, so you get a nice sauce. This really smells lovely. It's got so much freshness to it. It's incredible. And the colors are great, I think. The green and the red go beautifully together. There's orange from the carrots. I just think this is a stunning dish. This takes about maybe 20 minutes to cook, 20 or 30 minutes in here, because you've already cooked the meat. So all you need to do is just let this simmer a bit, and you'll see the spinach leaves begin to melt or wilt a little bit, I should say. And then the carrots will become tender. The beans are already cooked, so they just need to be warmed in here. I wanted to show you one little trick here for this. It says in the recipe to take the sausage out of the casing. So I wanted to show you what that actually looked like. So this is just one of the chicken sausages that I used. This actually is encased in a very thin skin. Okay, it's an edible skin, so there's no harm in eating it. But in this instance, we wanted the sausage to be in crumbles, if you will. So we're just going to take the skin off, and I wanted to show you that in case you hadn't seen that before, how to do this. You just simply take the sausage and then you cut it. Just down like that. And then it'll peel right off. This has been sitting out for just a little while, so they're not as cold as they were. But when they're cool, really cool, it comes right off. You just peel it off like that. You take it all the way down. You peel that off, and then that can just be discarded. And then from that point, you'll put this into the pan and cook it with the minced garlic. You could add onions if you wanted to, and just chop it a little bit with your spoon while it's cooking and breaking pieces. So if you've not seen a sausage taken out of the casing before, I wanted to be able to show you that. Okay, let me rinse my hands just a moment. Before I get down to anything else, a little bit of. Okay. All right, so that's basically the recipe right there. I want to show you the finished product, and then I also want to show you some alternatives with it. So give me just a second to switch this out.
Go ahead and do the next quiz question while you do that, Valerie.
Okay.
So Our next question is, what nutrient is associated with fighting infections? All right, Janice. You said the correct answer is zinc. So if you could private message me your mailing address, that would be great. You can send it to the moderator.
All right. This might look familiar. Some of the ingredients here might look familiar. I think we've done this once before. Okay, so this is the finished product right here. You see the spinach is wilted inside of here. It's such a gorgeous color. These are really beautiful fall colors. This orange and green together is lovely, and the smell, the aroma is actually fantastic with this. So you could alter this by using your own type of beans. Maybe you like black beans in this, or maybe you like red beans or kidney beans in this. I mean, there's whole different varieties you could use to make this have a different flavor profile if you wanted to. So that's the versatility of it, and having the canned beans or peas on hand is a beautiful way to incorporate these without much fuss, and it's quick as well. You could always buy the dried beans and peas, and just remember that you need to soak them for the most part, probably about 6 hours or more, and then cook them the next day. They will have much longer cooking time and prep time, but that's a great alternative as well. Okay, so I want to show you the recipe call for just putting this on top of a hoagie bun. And what I've done here is I just toasted a hoagie bun. I put just a little bit of margarine on it, and I mixed the margarine with a little bit of garlic powder just to give it a little bit of punch. And then just lightly spread it on here, and I toasted this morning in the oven. So the recipe calls for just ladling this over. I think this is a great way for a weeknight. It's perfect, it's easy, it's inexpensive, and I think it makes a great sandwich, if you will, or another way to eat a sandwich or a hoagie. So that's one way to serve it, just like that. And again, if you don't want to put the meat in it, you could just have it straight vegetables if you wanted to do that. Here's something else to consider. I know that we have talked about making these kind of tortilla bowls before, so I wanted to show you this. This is just a soft, this is actually a low sodium flour tortilla shell. In these forms, I bought this off Amazon. I got 2 of them, I think was for $15, and it's coated already, so you don't need any oil or anything with it. This is a great investment right here. I have used these a lot since I've bought them. So they come 2 to a pack. So you simply just take the tortilla and press it into the form like so. Just keep pressing it around. Just tap it a little bit into the sides of it, just like that. And you just bake this in the oven at 400 for about maybe 8 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. You need to check it and get it to the crispness that you like and the brown that you like. And this is an excellent way to have this dish as well. So here I have one already prepared. I'm just simply going to scoop it in here. So you just take the warm, this would be a warm mixture, and I scoop it right into the bowl. And that's a whole different serving profile for this. Match it with I've got some carrot and celery sticks here, and you're good to go. Maybe put a little Parmesan cheese on the top, or yellow cheese if you wanted to. And there you go. There's a whole different way to use this. Now, I also would serve this over pasta as well, or over rice. So you can see the versatility in this dish, and it's easy to prepare and has multiple uses in it. So there's your bean hoagie with multiple uses in it. I'm just going to set these in back, and we'll get on to the mandarin orange dessert.
Perfect, perfect. So we'll go ahead and do our next quiz question, which will be listing 3 plant-based protein sources. 3 plant-based protein sources.
I hear the brains whizzing out there.
We have a winner. They're all rolling in at once. Let me see. All right, Gia. So Gia, if you could send me your address in that private message, that would be great. And Valerie, we also do have a request in the chat.
Yeah.
Someone asked, can you send a list via email of the vitamins, nutrients, and foods that are best at fighting chronic inflammation?
I sure can. Remember all those phytonutrients. I'll just give you a hint up front. The deeper, the darker the fruit or the vegetable, the more antioxidants it has in it, and the more phytonutrients and phytochemicals. Okay, and those are the nutrients that help fight off chronic inflammation. And it's because it boosts your immune system, and your immune system uses those nutrients to help fight off anything that would cause chronic inflammation. So deep, dark fruits and vegetables. But I can also send a list of some other foods as well. All right. This is a fun recipe, and it was an experiment for me. I had never made it before. The first time was a couple of days ago, and I've used it in a couple of different ways. So this is also really versatile. So I selected mandarin oranges because this is a winter fruit, although we have these year-round. I mean, you can get these any time of the year, actually. These are just canned mandarin oranges in their own juice, not in any sweetened syrup or anything. Straight mandarin oranges. They're a lovely fruit. They're tiny, but they're packed full of like a sweet, tangy flavor. I think it's like a burst of vitamin C is what I call them, little bursts of sunshine, actually. And they work really well in a lot of different recipes, and they're great to just nibble on if you just like them like that. I just noticed one thing with my recipe, and I'll put this as a hint. I have some extract in here that has already evaporated since I put it in here this morning. So I'm just going to step behind me in the cabinet and get a little bit more of this orange extract out, because that has evaporated. So there's a lesson learned. Don't pour your extract ahead of time. Okay, so I've got that. All right, so essentially this recipe is using a pudding mix, and I've just cut that off right now because I know if I pour that in ahead of time that will, the moisture in the air would have made that already soggy. So I'm just going to open that up. This is the one that serves 4 servings in it, and all that is just the pudding mixture right in there. I used a low-calorie pudding mix just to help with the calorie content as well, but you could use the regular one, it would work fine. You don't want the pie filling. You want instant vanilla pudding. So make sure when you pick this pudding up that it's the instant pudding, not the pie filling part. All right, so in the recipe instructions, we just put the product in here, which we've done that, and we're going to use the milk. You could use either a plant-based milk or an animal-based milk in here. I used, this is skim milk in here, just cold skim milk. And this will thicken really quickly. I was a bit worried when I did this the other day. I thought it was just really way too thick, but actually it thickens quite quickly. So just use a whisk and stir it around like that, and expect that you're going to have a really thick mixture. Okay, you can see how it's starting to really get thick there. All right, to that, we're just going to add pumpkin puree. not the pumpkin pie filling, not anything sweetened. All this is straight pumpkin, loaded with vitamin A and antioxidants. You can see that deep dark color that I was talking about. This is one of the examples of those. Sweet potatoes would be another one along the same line. Okay, so we've added that, and the orange extract, which was, I think, about 1/4 of a teaspoon. So I'm going to just do a little bit of guesstimating here. All right. This really smells great too. I don't know if you've ever used orange extract. It doesn't take much to get the orange essence, but it's a really lovely flavor extract to have around. All right, so I'm going to beat those just a little bit together. Here's where your color change comes in. Isn't this lovely? This look like fall? This is what really gives this a lot of color to this. So we're just going to keep whisking it around like that. Again, your mixture is going to be pretty thick, so don't get worried yet. All right, that looks good, and it smells wonderful. The next we're going to add is this whipped topping. I'm using a vegan whipped topping in here. You could use a regular whipped topping. This was more of an experiment with me. I had not used much of this, so I bought a couple of cartons of it, and I've just been experimenting, and it's worked out really well so far. I have to tell you that personally, I'm not a fan of whipped topping. It's just not something that I like. Inside of these desserts, it's actually fabulous. So feel free to try one of these plant-based ones if you like it. They keep in the freezer really well. That's where I keep mine, so you could use them and then put it back. So I'm going to put, I think it's about 1.5 cups in here, and this is a 9-ounce container. So I'm just going to roughhouse this a little bit there, right there. All right. You can see it begins to get this light, fluffy consistency to it. It's fantastic. If you wanted this to be a little bit thinner, then you just add some more milk to it or some whipped topping to it. So that's up to you. However, when we add these mandarin oranges, the juice from that is going to lighten this a little bit. So just keep that in mind. I poured off most of the juice off these mandarin oranges, but because they've been sitting overnight when I was prepping, a little bit more of the juice has come out. So I'm not going to add all of that, but I will add most of it. All right, let's see. That's about 15 ounces of mandarin oranges in here. All right, and at this point, I'm actually going to change utensils. Because I don't want to whip it anymore. I want to do what's called folding. And when you fold something in, although I'm not perfect at this, I had to learn how to do this. The purpose behind folding is not to damage something. So we don't, if I were to use the whip in here, it would tear the mandarin oranges apart. And that's not what we want. So when you fold something in a bowl, you actually just bring the spatula down and across the top of the product, down and across the top of the product, and you just turn the bowl until you incorporate all of the ingredients. And it may take 10 or 15 times to be able to do it, but that's what you're doing. Instead of just doing the stirring motion, you're just gently folding in a product. So just keep turning it over like that. All right. And that's basically incorporated into there. So I'm going to put that aside just a second. I'm going to show you a little trick with these parfait. So we're actually going to layer this with some, these are ginger snaps. I put them in a plastic bag like this because we need crumbs. So if you'll take the ginger snaps out of the regular package, put them in a, this is just a Ziploc bag. This is much easier to get a crumb like this than it is to do this on your counter. So if you just take the back of a wooden spoon, and this is going to be a little bit loud. and just give it a good whack. And the reason why I did that is because if I don't use all of these, then they're already crumbled. The crumbles are already in here. All I have to do is ziplock the bag and put it back in the cabinet. And it prevents these crackers from going all over your kitchen, which is what will happen if you try to hit this without being in a plastic bag or covered. So that was a learning lesson for me. All right. One other little addition to this, and I think we may have done this already. I can't remember if I've used this already. I wanted to add a little bit of nutmeg to this, and I keep nutmeg just like these little whole nutmegs right here. It's much cheaper to buy these little whole nutmegs and to use their own nutmeg. Plus, it doesn't lose its flavor over time. Like if you were to buy a spice, there's only a certain shelf life to that, this nutmeg spice. But if you buy these whole nutmegs, then you can just keep them and use them. So what you do is you just take a grater, small grater like this, and you just grate it on top. The smell of this is absolutely fabulous. I don't know that if you can see the striations in this nutmeg. They're absolutely delightful. And it's a great fall flavor to add. You could add cinnamon to this as well if you wanted to, an apple pie spice or a pumpkin pie spice. Any of those would work. But keeping some nutmeg around is a great spice to have. You could also use it in things like coffees and cocoa. Put it on top of yogurt. It's fabulous. All right, so let's put this together. So I'm simply going to take a glass just like that. You could use any type. I think the one I have in back of me is in a coffee mug. We're just going to take some of the cookies and put them on the bottom. This is the layering part of the parfait. The hardest part is to get the parfait in the glass without trying to mess it up. So let's see if I can do that. Try to be careful with this. You can see the oranges coming through on the glass, which is really pretty. It's such a great color. I love this orange color. All right, we're just going to put a little bit layer of that in there. Oh, I knew I'd hit the glass. All right, it doesn't need to be perfect. Let's try a little bit more. You can use a different type of cookie if you wanted in here. You could use a type of a plain biscuit if you wanted to, a plain sweet biscuit. Graham crackers would work very well in here if you like graham crackers. These are actually ginger spice cookies, so they've got a little bit more flavor to them. And I'm going to layer again with the mousse that we created. All right, there you go. Messed up the jar just a little bit, but that's it. This is a really light dessert, and there's some flexibility with it as well. So as usual, when I'm creating something, I think, well, how else can I use, especially if I make a lot more than I need, or what other ways can I incorporate this recipe into another menu item. All right, so let me show you something. I'm just going to step in back of me and get the finished product here. Okay, so all I've done is put it in two different mugs here. It's the same thing, but you can see how it's different when it's served in a mug, coffee mug like that as opposed to the jar I just served it in. So that's one way. I just added a little bit of acorn candy to that. Here's another option for this. To keep this as a light dessert and a healthy dessert, you might want to think about pairing this with something like angel food cake. This is a bought angel food cake. You can make your own angel food cake. It's easy to make, but it takes a lot of egg whites, and so you might not have all of those egg whites available. Then you've got to figure out what to do with all of the egg yolks. So In this particular instance, I just bought a pre-made angel food cake. They do sell mixes for the angel food cake, which is also an option to do that. And just paired it with a little bit of the mousse and then a bit of the fruit as well. That's another alternative. It's a light, healthy dessert. It's packed full of nutrients, and I think it's a great way to enjoy some of our fall spices as well. Any questions about any of those recipes or the nutrition segment? Is it time for more questions?
We may have a few more questions rolling in just a second.
Okay.
So I'm always ready for lunch after your sessions, Valerie.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's hard to be in front of all of this food like this, especially when you're hungry.
Exactly. Let's see. I don't see any right now, but if anyone would like to stay after and ask questions for Valerie, I'm sure she will be happy to answer those. And we thank all of you for coming out and attending, and we look forward to seeing you at session 4 on November the 10th.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for being here. And as usual, don't forget to wash your hands.
You have a lot of thank yous rolling.
Good. Good to hear. I appreciate that. Thanks very much. I really enjoy these
Great
sessions.
session. Someone said great session.
Good. We're going to have a recap of all the sessions. Maybe do a blitz of the recap.